Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited today because I'm coming at you with another client tutorial. I had a very good feedback, reaction, all the good stuff to when I brought Julie on a couple of weeks ago to show you an everyday makeup look for beginners. This particular client, her name is Angie. She came to me a few months ago for a makeup lesson, and she was really wanting to know techniques for hooded eyes and best complexion products to suit her needs because she had been having some issues finding some powders and foundations that she felt really worked for her. She was like, I'm just at an age where I feel like I need to change some things up, and we will talk through that in this video, but she just wanted techniques, products, and an everyday, easy, attainable look. So that is what I am bringing you today. We are doing the exact look that I did for her on her makeup lesson, talking you through it. So hopefully you enjoy. And I've gotten a lot of requests for more client videos, so be sure and tell me what you are wanting to see next. So let's go ahead and jump in to doing Angie's makeup. Okay, so I'm gonna prep her face and I'm gonna make sure to use SPF because she, like me, never leaves the house without SPF on, which I love to hear. But I am gonna do a little bit of a moisturizing serum, some eye cream, and then I'll show you all the SPF that I carry in my kit that I like to use under makeup that pretty much works on all skin types and everybody that I use it on. So I'm just going to spray a little bit with some MAC Fix Plus just to get a nice damp surface, and then I'm going to be using my Clarins double serum. This I love. I've gone through multiple of these in my kit, and it's very hydrating. Again, it works on all skin types. I can even use it on oilier skin, which, Andy, what kind of skin do you have?
Dry to normal.
Dry to normal.
More dry, yeah. In the winter, I have to kind of amp it up some just because being inside with the heat.
I find that the heat, like heaters and stuff, inside wreak havoc on my skin more than the cold outside.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm going to use the Elastin Ultra Light Moisturizer for her moisturizer. I really like this one underneath makeup because it is, as it states, ultra light, but it also adds the moisture that you need. And because I'm putting an SPF on top, I don't want to use too heavy of a moisturizer on the skin. For eye cream, I'm going to be using the Elemis Pro Collagen Eye Revive Mask. I've talked about this before. This is a very cooling gel-like eye cream. It's also very hydrating, but I love it because it almost acts like a primer for your under eyes. And then I'm going to use a little bit of lip balm, and this is hands down the one product I get asked about the most from my clients. I have brides from like 2 to 3 years ago that will message me and say, what was that lip balm you used on me? It's from MAC, and it is their lip conditioner. And I don't know what makes it so special, but it just feels really good on the lips. It's not super thick and heavy. Sometimes I feel the need to blot it off by the time I get to lipstick, and sometimes I don't, but it just feels really good on the lips. And then finally for SPF, I'm going to be using my Chantecaille Ultra Sun Protection Sunscreen. This is SPF 45. This is an SPF 45 primer. They call it a primer. And so that's another reason I love to use it, because it is meant to go under makeup. It's very liquidy and lightweight. It gives a pretty sheen to the skin. It also sinks in really well and gives you that protection. I know that I'm not going to get any flashback from this when I use it on clients. I know it's going to work under, every foundation that I have tried, it works under. I'm actually going to start off with Angie's eyebrows, and what we used is a pencil. The It Cosmetics Brow Power Universal Taupe is one of my favorite brow pencils to use because it is universally flattering. Now, I didn't do a ton. Angie's got good shape to her eyebrows. I just basically filled them in. Now, I tell everybody I don't like to do anything with the bottom line. I like to keep that where it naturally is. If you start filling in a brow at the bottom, it's going to make it droopy. So if I do any filling or shaping, it's going to be from the top And I really just kind of fill it in, make it just a little bit thicker. I'm not gonna make it thick, but I do want it to be a little bit more noticeable. So I'm just going with the natural shape, keeping that arch where it is and filling them in a little bit. Okay, and for her, I used my Senna brow book, but really, what do you use the brow powder? Or do you
No,
just use a pencil?
I just use a pencil.
Okay. I just like to go in with a powder, not all the time, but sometimes just to fine tune the shape and kind of set that pencil down. Especially, I was just telling her the It Cosmetic one I love, but it can be a little bit creamier, which makes it easier to apply. But I do feel like sometimes it needs to be set down with a powder so that it doesn't move throughout the day. So that's where I just like to bring in a brow powder on top. I'm gonna go ahead and start on her base, and I'm gonna use a corrector a little tiny bit because she has mentioned that less is always more under her eyes. And I think that's the case for us all, right? As we get older, unfortunately, that area crinkles and cracks the most. So in order to make sure I don't apply too much, I'm going to use a very fluffy brush. This is my favorite brush of all time in my kit. I have probably 12 of them. It's the Real Techniques setting brush. I think that's what it's called. Yes. And it is incredibly versatile. I use it for foundation, for concealer, for powder, highlight, contour, blush. It basically does everything. So I'm applying it to the brush first, and I'm just going to sweep a little bit under her eye. Now, applying it to the brush first is going to make sure that I don't apply too much versus if I were to go in straight and apply it in her eye and then blend it out. So even if you have a doe foot applicator, which this comes in, you can do this. You can put a little bit on your hand and then apply it with a brush, and that's going to help make sure you don't apply too much. Just want a little tiny bit, and because I'm doing it this way, it really is a very small amount that I'm putting under her eyes just to help cut some of the darkness before we go in with concealer, and it's just a little bit. And you say you have used this one before,
Yes,
and you like it.
I do.
So that cut down the darkness some, and again, we're going to be going over it with concealer as well. Now, this is my favorite part of the whole look, which is her complexion. I love skin. It's my favorite thing to do, and I think she was pretty happy with the products that we use.
Yes.
She said that she has since gone and ordered some for herself. So I wanted to show, this is mostly Jane Iredale, and I wanted to show how we can use these products even though some of it's powder, and it's not going to look that way, because I remember Angie, when she first came to me, she said that you had not been able to find a powder, right, that had worked. What was the issue with the powder?
It just always looked like powder, and to me it accentuated, no matter what kind I used, no matter what method I used, it accentuated everything, and the longer the day went on, the worse that it got.
Right.
So,
and she was thinking, I just can't use it, right? And I was telling her, I get asked that all the time. People are like, I'm over a certain age, I can't use powder. It's not going to look right on my skin. And that's a very blanket assumption with powder, because yes, there are some powders that don't really look good on any skin, but especially as we get older. But then there are some that really do, and that's what I'm going to use today. But first, we're going to start out with foundation, and I use the Jane Iredale Beyond Matte foundation on Angie, and I'm going to use the shade M10.
Which that foundation is not matte. Like,
no, it's not. Matte. I'm glad you said that.
It's not, because I would have never even looked at anything called matte.
All right, and that's what is kind of, I'm like, maybe we should change the name, but because I totally get that. This is more of a natural satin finish to me. I am doing very soft pressure on the brush, using a very small amount to start, because I do find this has a good solid medium coverage, and I'm just lightly, not stippling with this brush, you definitely can, but to first apply it, I'm just kind of somewhat buffing. I just got done telling Angie I'm not a huge buffer. I think sometimes it depends on the brush that you use. But this way I can see what the initial coverage is going to be, and then I can go back over it if I need to and stipple in some more for some more coverage. I do want to make sure I take it all the way down the neck. And I like that initial coverage that we have. And I don't even think I put 2 pumps on my palette and I still have quite a bit left. So I probably used 1 pump, which that's about how much I use on my face too. I'm gonna do a little bit on the ears to make everything flow. And then of course, like I said, take it down the neck. I'm gonna take a little bit of my NARS Soft Matte Complete Concealer in the shade Honey. And I'm gonna use that same brush, put a little bit on the tip, and then go over some of any of the discoloration that's showing through. I am not of the mind where you need to cover up every spot on the face, but this just kind of tones them down a little bit. I want that skin to show through some. Okay, so for concealer, I'm going to be using my favorite, the Clinique Even Better All Over Concealer and Eraser. I'm using the shade CN40, and you said you had went out and got this, right? And you've been enjoying it?
Yes, very much.
It's just so good. I just don't think it gets near enough love. And I'm going to take that same setting brush that I used the corrector on and applying a very small amount on the under eyes. And I'm going to take it down just a little bit, but I wish that I was able to show everybody. I mean, I don't think even if I showed Angie here, she'd be able to see what a tiny amount I'm using. I really think that if anybody has any issues with too much product on their under eyes, I would really suggest getting one of these brushes in particular and trying this method. This is my favorite concealer personally, but honestly, I took advantage of the Clinique Black Friday sale and I got like 6 new shades for my kit. It works on everybody.
Yeah, I quit using concealer.
But you like this one.
I do.
I love that.
And you're right. The tiniest, what I think is not going to be near enough. Is plenty.
But it's not super full coverage, right? No. It doesn't look like you got a ton of stuff. It's just, it takes a very little amount to do what you need it to do.
Yeah.
Under your eyes. Take a little bit on her lids, but I'm going to use another product on that too before we do eyeshadow. And I'm going to let that sink in because that's all the cream products that we're going to be using. So I'm going to go to the eyes. And she had mentioned we actually used the NARS Soft Matte on her eyelids as a primer before when she came for the lesson, but she had mentioned earlier today that she's been using the NARS Corrector, Radiant Creamy Color Corrector, as an eyelid base. So I have that, and I thought, well, let's try that. Can you tell them why you like that for the face?
It helps to even out the tone on my eyelid. They're not only crinkly, but they're dark and there are veins, and you're right, from the last time, it makes a big difference once you apply makeup when it's kind of like smooth, at least close to the same color.
Yes, because she has the same issue I do. She's got a lot of discoloration on the eyelids as well as underneath the eyes. And I feel like if you even just kind of correct one of those, it helps the other one look less harsh. So I'm just taking just the tiniest amount of this corrector, and I'm using the shade Light. I didn't even ask what shade you use. Do you know?
I think that's it.
Okay. And then to set that, before we go into eyeshadow, I'm just going to use my Hourglass Veil Setting Powder and press that in. Don't need a lot, but I am using powder shadow today, so I want to make sure that it blends out the best. And to me, powder blends best over powder, cream blends best over cream.
It does make a difference.
It does, like a lot. I feel like a lot of people still aren't setting their eye primer. Like, I still get a lot of questions about that. Do I need to set my eye primer? And I feel like it, like you said, just does make a very big difference.
Yeah, especially when, my eyelids are crepey and the skin moves. Mm-hmm. And so I found after I use that powder, it glides over it a lot easier rather than me having to pull the skin taut, which is the worst, I know.
Yeah, well, but I mean, sometimes you feel like you have to do that, especially when if you don't, lay the powder down, that shadow is going to stick right where you put it. It's not going to be easy to blend out. So definitely, it's just a very easy step and fast step that makes a very big difference. Now, Angie has hooded eyes, and she was kind of asking for some tips and tricks on how best to do shadow for hooded eyes. And My favorite way to do it, especially for everyday makeup. Now, when she came for a lesson, I was not trying to show her how to like go to an event or anything like that. She wanted everyday tips. And for everyday makeup on hooded eyes, I like to do what they call like a wash of color, right? I don't think it's necessary to go in with 5 different colors or even 3 different colors. When you have hooded eyes and you're just trying to liven them up a little bit for everyday makeup. So we used the Wayne Goss Luxury Eye Palette in Tourmaline. And I actually concentrated the majority of the look in this middle shade right here, which is just called number 5. And I basically put this all over her mobile lid, which is the spot that moves the most, right over the eyeball. I'm packing that on. This is a Morphe M433, but any kind of shader brush this size I like because it's a little bit fluffier. It's not super dense. I don't want dense, but because I want to be able to blend as I go. Now I'm packing that onto the lid and then I'm bringing it up into her natural crease, and then I'm going to have her open, and I'm going to take a little bit where I can see it. I'm going to make this crease, and then I'm going to have her close again, and I can see where that line is that I just made, and I'm basically just going to put the shadow up to that line and then blend it out. So what were your biggest like obstacles that you were finding with eyeshadow?
Trying to find a way to put it on my eye correctly because they are severely hooded, and everything that you see on that, they're always telling you to bring it out and up. Well, at some point, like this point, that's number one, it's very difficult to do. It's very time consuming, and that just wasn't something I wanted to do every day. And then what you told me about the actual shape of my eye and following that rather than all the time trying to create something that's not there was a huge help. Okay, so that is what I was going to kind of talk about while I finish this up. Obviously, I love YouTube, right? I mean, I'm on it. I love watching it. But what I have found in the world of YouTube and Instagram and all of these makeup videos is that a lot of people feel the need to change how they look now because they see all of, these people that are doing certain techniques. Look straight ahead for me. And, they think, oh, that I need to do that. Or they heard somebody say, okay, I have hooded eyes, so I need to pull it up and back in and give myself more of a almond shaped eye, even though I have a round shaped eye. And here's my thing. I think I touched on this in my video with Julie. A lot of times I feel like we really just should go with what God gave us and enhance that versus trying to change that. There's nothing wrong with the shape of Angie's eyes. She's got a great eye shape. There's no reason she needs to feel the need to go in and elongate them and bring it back and all of that. It just keep the rounded shape that she has. She's got gorgeous eyes. All she needs to do is know how she can do placement where she can still see it, which is kind of how I showed you, forming that own crease, and an easy thing to do, and that is basically doing a wash of color. And I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like that was kind of like a weight off your back, right? It was,
like
because I felt like I was always trying to hide the hood. At a certain point, like I said, you can't hide it, but it's like, okay, you get what you get, and you deal with what you got, and it's much easier. Yeah, it really is. It's like you said, it's not that there's anything wrong with the other way, and there are times when, I might want to do something a little different, but for every day, the reality is, this is what it is, and it's much easier to not fight against it. Exactly, and I feel like a lot of the stigma around hooded eyes about having, needing to change it and this is what you need to do makes it sound like there's something wrong with hooded eyes. And there's not. Some of the most beautiful women in the world have hooded eyes. Like that, it's just an eye shape. It's not a bad shape. It's not a great shape. It's just an eye shape, right? And you work with it. So this is my favorite way to do, every day. Now, does it have to be with this color? No. The reason I chose this color, she's got really pretty green eyes. And this color really makes that
that eye color pop. Now I'm going to use color number 1, and I remember I just put a little bit of that in the middle, and I am going above the hood so that when she opens, you can kind of see it a little bit better versus staying right down here on the bottom. Just in the middle, just lightens it up. Definitely doesn't have to be done. Now, another technique that I like to do for hooded eyes is tight lining. I don't love putting eyeliner on the top. It's just, I'm not saying I've never do it with hooded eyes, but it's not a technique that I love to do, because a lot of times once we put that liner on and then we look up, that's kind of all we see, right? Because our hood is covering the rest, and then it just looks like you have a black smoky eye, right? It takes away from other things that you have on your eyes. So I like to tight line because it gives that same effect of a fuller lash line, but you're not taking up any real estate on the upper lash line. So have you started doing this since our lesson?
Yes, I've done it for a while because I have, when my eyes are open,
you can't,
there's nothing there. So I just kind of
stamp it on. Yeah. I'm using my favorite. This is the one I keep in my kit, the Pixie Endless Silky Eye Pencil.
I did get that one.
Do you love it?
Yeah, I do. It's much easier. I had stopped doing pencils because I felt like it was almost like a glue between my lashes. And then I'm like, okay, now I've got clumps. But that one, it's for me,
very silky.
It is.
It's so nice. Okay, look down and that way. It glides on so easily. My way. It's very black. But I mean, it makes it so easy, especially to do it on clients, because that can be the most uncomfortable part of a look if someone has never done it to themselves before, especially when I'm like on a job and they literally just met me like 30 seconds ago and I'm coming at them like with a sharp object and they're like, I don't know about this. Look down in that. Not only do I recommend the technique, my way, but this pencil is just a must-have for personal and kit use. Okay, let's finish up the rest of the face. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to set very, very, very lightly underneath her eyes. I personally love the Pat McGrath. In my kit, I really like using the Hourglass Veil loose powder because it's very finely milled. You need the smallest amount. I'm going to go in with the same concealer brush and just kind of make sure there's no creases or anything. And I'm going to take very, very tiny amount and basically press that into the under eye. About powder, this is my favorite part. The part that I remember during our lesson, Angie was like, what? Like I remember you kept looking in the mirror and you're like, I can't believe I have powder on. I've talked about this product a lot, but I've only used it on myself, and I want to show you how awesome it is on other people. This is the Jane Iredale Amazing Base Loose Powder Foundation. Now, yes, this is a powder foundation. You can definitely use it all by itself. I like it by itself, but I really love it as a setting powder and a finishing powder for foundations. I love it with the Beyond Matte, which I think you are going to be able to tell through the camera that this is not matte, right? She is not matte right now. She still has a real pretty glow to her face, and that's not only contributed to the skin prep that we did, but to the foundation as well. It just doesn't make you flat and matte. This is also a very pretty luminous product. There is a pure pressed base if you are more oily and you don't like, luminosity to the skin, which is also very pretty. I'm using the shade Golden Glow, so I just have the product in the cap, and I'm using the chisel powder brush. Now, did you get this brush as well, or do you use another brush?
I did not. I have a similar brush.
Okay.
So.
This is my favorite brush to use with the product because of how it is best applied. So even if you have something similar to this, that's fine. Or if you want to purchase this brush, that's good too. Turn this way for me. So I'm going to start on this side of the face. These minerals are meant to be laid on the face. Okay, they're not meant to be buffed. I know a lot of, loose mineral foundations are. This one is not. So I'm going to take this brush and basically stripe it on her skin, for lack of a better phrase. I mean, that's basically what I did. And what I do, whether I'm applying it to myself or somebody else. And I have 5 colors of this in my kit. I use it very often on other people. It has SPF in it as well, which never hurts. I'm not saying you need to depend on the SPF in this powder to be your only SPF, but it certainly doesn't hurt. So I have set her skin. I think you can see it is absolutely not powder-like at all. It is a really pretty finish. It's not, and I think we talked about this in the lesson too. Like, we didn't want greasy looking, right? We didn't want shimmery. We wanted that like pearlized, luminous finish.
Yes.
And this gives it.
It
really does.
Yeah.
And I like to take just a little bit, the very top of the brush, and go under the eye as well, just as like a finishing effect there. You could also use a lighter color to set under the eye if you wanted more coverage as well, without being super heavy or, you know, too luminous, but definitely not too matte.
Yeah.
Right?
No, it's just so pretty. Once you put it on, it's like, okay, everything's smooth looking.
It's filter. It's almost like a filter on the face. It's one product that I don't think gets enough love at all. So before we finish up the eyes, I'm going to finish up the face. And one thing that we talked about in our lesson, and another thing that I really wanted to talk about here, is that again, we watch YouTube videos, we see all these awesome products, we want the bronzer, we want the highlight, we want all of the everything, right? We don't always need all of those products, right? And when Angie and I were talking during our makeup lesson, I realized, you know what, she's got really pretty coloring. She's got a really pretty tan coloring naturally. I was like, I don't really think we need to add a bronzer on you, you know? And she's like, did you use one before that?
I did, and I tried the thing of, you know, doing here and around here and everything. I don't feel like my forehead is that long, but I still felt like I just needed to do it. And my problem, I think, that I told you I ran into is that I've got discoloration a lot on this side. And every time I would try to put it on, I felt like it would just be muddy. And then I'd go to put my blush on and I'm like, well, what's that?
Muddier.
Yeah, it made it worse. So we tried it without any bronzer. So it helped a lot for me.
So I just kind of want to make that a note that just, this is not paint by colors. Like, every face does not need the exact same thing, right? So she felt like bronzer wasn't doing her any favors. She didn't need it really to warm up her face, so don't use it, right? It doesn't mean just because everybody else does that you need to. And so I felt like not only is she a gorgeous model with hooded eyes, but I thought that was another good reason to bring her on, because it just reiterates the fact that just because it's there and available doesn't mean it always does us favors, right? So I didn't even use a highlight on her because, I mean, look at her beautiful luminosity. Okay, this powder and this foundation and the skin prep are making her look so pretty on its own, luminous on its own. I don't need to add another highlight, right? So we just use blush. And I don't know if did we talk about like what kind of undertone you liked in a blush, whether you liked peach or rose, or is it just,
I tend to go towards I think we picked that, but I tend to go towards something with a mauve, like almost a blue in it, because I can't do oranges or things like that.
Right, and because of the eye color that we chose for her, I remember I think I laid out a few different ones, and you chose the one that you like the most, and it is from Jane Iredale, and it's the color Mystique. It's a really pretty rosy. It has a little bit of a mauve to it. It is a matte blush. I'm going to use the same chisel powder brush, and I'm going to start kind of up at the top. This is it's a good shade to where I can even go on the temples a little bit to add a little bit of color. I'm not going to go too far down. I don't want anything to drop. I really want to give the effect of a lifted look. So I'm really just kind of sweeping that on the cheekbone, and then just a little bit on the temples, which I wouldn't necessarily do with every blush color, but this one, I like the effect. Okay, so if I get to this point in the makeup and I'm like looking at her and I love the luminosity, but I'd want to dial it down just a little bit in these areas. I've shown this technique before, but I'm going to show it here. I'm going to give her this. It's in the plastic, not reusing it. This is a Jane Iredale flocked sponge, which is my favorite way to touch up. I'm using the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Finish Powder, and I'm putting just a little bit right on the edge, and I'm tapping that into the area where I want to dial down. Shine, like tap. You don't need a lot at all. I love this powder as a touch-up because you could basically put the entire compact on and it wouldn't.
Yeah, I've got one of those in the small.
Okay,
which is nice to keep in your purse.
Yes. Okay, so that is all that I'm doing on the face. I'm going to spray a little bit with the Balance Hydration Spray. And I'll take that same flock sponge and kind of press that in. I'm going to go back into this number 5 shade with a BK Beauty 207 brush. And I'm going to buff just a little bit underneath her eyes. This is a step that I honestly like to do on pretty much everybody. Did you do this before?
No.
Have you started since?
Yeah, I have. Just a little bit. Yeah,
just a little bit. Well, and it depends, I think, on what color you're using. If you were using a much lighter color than this, you could probably go a little heavier and not feel as, oh my goodness, what did I just do? It takes some getting used to, but I feel like once you do it, it makes a big difference in the finishing look of your eye. Plus,
it does bring it together.
Yes, and I love the fact that it also kind of hides any of those imperfections that are right up under your lash line. I'm going to use the one that I have in my kit. This is the one that I use on people that I'm not putting false lashes on. It's one of my favorites. I don't waste it on false lashes because honestly, I could put anything on false lashes and be fine. But this is the Kevyn Aucoin Volume Mascara. It's a tubing mascara. It's very black, but the tubing ensures that it's really not going to go anywhere throughout the day. Have you ever used a tubing mascara?
Yes.
It needs warm water to be removed, and I just really like it. So I'm going to use my little guard. For lips, I'm going to use a lip liner. I'm going to use the MAC lip liner in Soar, which is just a really pretty pink, neutral pink color. I'm not overlining. With the product that I'm about to use, I like to have a liner on first. And I did blot her lips off with that MAC product so that it would be easier to line. And then we used one of the Jane Iredale lip fixations. It is something else. This is one of my very favorite products because it stays on all day long. Like, did it stay on till you basically went to bed that night?
It did. Yeah. It did. And it's a beautiful color.
Yes. This is in the shade Blissed Out. You can, apply gloss on top of it, which we did and which we will today. But it's something that I know is just not going to budge. So I really like to use it for weddings so that I basically can put it on everybody in the wedding party and they don't have to worry about it for the rest of the day. So this is a very pretty berry shade, and I would say it's cool toned. I feel like it looks really good with the shade on her eyes. Okay, well, I used the Maybelline gloss, the hyaluronic acid gloss on her last time. I pulled it out of my kit earlier and I can't for the life of me find it. So I'm going to use just a little bit of the NYX Butter Gloss in Tiramisu because it is kind of in the same vein as the Blissed Out, and it's just going to give a pretty sheen. And again, the NYX gloss, the Maybelline gloss, whatever gloss you put on top will fade throughout the day, but that color is not going anywhere. So that is the finished look. This is, to me, a very simple, achievable look. Did you have any issues when I sent you the list, figuring out what I did or getting that look again?
No, I remembered it pretty easy. And it just took me, again, it was with the eyeshadow, it's such habit. It's breaking habits of what I used to do. But once I did that, I think I told you, it's so much quicker.
So much quicker.
It's so much quicker, which is huge to me.
Yes.
So.
But it still looks like you put a ton of time into your makeup. Your skin is perfected. You've got the coverage you need, but you don't look cakey. Everything lasts all day. That's the goal in makeup, right? Especially, I feel like over the age of 40. We just want something that's going to last all day, that's going to complement our skin. It's not going to look cakey and just makes us look enhanced. Right. I don't even want to say better. Just enhanced, right?
Yeah.
So, hey, thank you for being my model today.
Well, thank
I so
you very
appreciate
much for doing it.
Thank y'all for watching. Let me know if you have any questions. And I have been getting a lot of requests to do more client makeup looks. So let me know what you want to see next. And until next time, I hope y'all go out and have a very blessed day.